The keycard beeped red. Again, Aurelia Rhodes cursed under her breath, juggling the silver tray loaded with champagne flutes while trying to swipe the card for the fourth time. The executive floor of the Meridian Hotel buzzed with Manhattan's elite, but this particular corridor felt eerily quiet compared to the corporate party 3 floors below. "Come on," she whispered, pressing the card against the reader. Green light. Finally, she pushed open the door and stepped into what she expected to be the empty conference room where she was supposed to set up the private bar for VIP guests. Instead, she found herself face to face with a half-naked man stepping out of the shower, water droplets trailing down his chest. "What the hell are you doing in my room?" His voice cut through the air like a blade. Dark hair slicked back, steel gray eyes that seemed to dissect her on the spot. This wasn't the conference room. This was definitely someone's suite. Aurelia's grip tightened on the tray. "I'm so sorry, I thought this was room 2847. He grabbed a towel, wrapping it around his waist without breaking eye contact. "This is 2874. Heat flooded her cheeks. She'd mixed up the numbers. Classic Aurelia move. "I'll just go." "Wait." He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something distinctly masculine. "You're not supposed to be on this floor. I work for the catering company. The Morrison event downstairs." She lifted the tray slightly, as if the champagne glasses would prove her innocence. "I was supposed to set up a private bar in the conference room." The Morrison event. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it had reached his eyes. "Anderson Morrison's retirement party?" "Yes, and I really need to get back." "Do you know who I am?" The question hung between them. Aurelia studied his face, noting the sharp jawline, the way he carried himself like someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Rich, definitely. Powerful, probably. Trouble, absolutely. Should I?" Something flickered in his expression. "Surprise, maybe. Most people do." "Well, I don't." She took a step toward the door. "And I need to get these drinks downstairs before my boss fires me." "Your boss?" He moved to block her path, not aggressively, but with enough presence that she stopped. "What's your name?" "Why? Humor me." Aurelia hesitated. Every instinct told her to leave, but something about the way he looked at her made her pause. Not like the usual leering customers who treated service staff as invisible until they wanted something. His gaze was intense, calculating, but not dismissive. "Aurelia. Aurelia." He repeated it slowly, like he was testing how it sounded. "Pretty name." "Thanks. Can I go now?" "You're not what I expected." "Expected for what?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The city lights painted his profile in sharp relief. "Most people who end up in my room have an agenda. My only agenda is keeping my job." "And what job is that exactly? Besides serving drinks at corporate parties?" "I'm a graphic designer. The catering gig pays the bills." "Graphic designer." He turned back to her. "Struggling artist type? Student loan debt type?" That earned her what looked like a genuine smile. "Honest. I like that." The champagne glasses clinked softly as she shifted the tray. "Look, I really do need to go. People are probably wondering where their drinks are." "Let them wonder." The casual arrogance in his tone sparked something in her. "Easy for you to say. You're not the one who'll get written up for disappearing." "What if I told you that wouldn't be a problem?" "I'd say you're either really optimistic or really delusional." He laughed, a rich sound that surprised them both. "When's the last time someone called me delusional?" "Probably not recently enough." Another laugh. He moved closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "You have no idea who I am, do you?" "None whatsoever." "Good." His hand brushed against hers as he reached for one of the champagne flutes. Their fingers touched for just a moment, but the contact sent an unexpected jolt through her. "Then we can skip the pretenses." "What pretenses?" "The part where you pretend to be interested in me for my money, and I pretend to believe you." Aurelia blinked. "Wow, that's either incredibly cynical or you have really terrible taste in women." "Both, probably." She found herself studying his face more carefully. Handsome, obviously, but there was something harder underneath. Lines around his eyes that spoke of too much stress, too little sleep. "That's kind of sad." "Sad. Never knowing if someone likes you or for what you can do for them." His expression shifted, becoming unreadable. "Most people would say that's just reality. Most people are wrong about a lot of things." The silence stretched between them, charged with something she couldn't quite identify. Finally, He set the champagne glass back on her tray. You should go. The dismissal stung more than it should have. Right? Of course. She headed for the door, but his voice stopped her. Aurelia. She turned back. Be careful who you trust in this city. Not everyone is as harmless as they seem. Including you? His smile was sharp-edged. Especially me. She left without another word, but not before catching the way he watched her go, like he was memorizing every detail. In the hallway, she realized her heart was racing. It wasn't until she reached the elevator that she noticed one of her pearl earrings was missing. 3 weeks later, Aurelia was elbow-deep in flour when the bell above Grandma Eve's cafe chimed. She glanced up from the sourdough she was kneading, expecting to see Mrs. Chun from the flour shop, or maybe Tom, the mailman who always stopped by for his afternoon coffee. Instead, a man in a $1,000 suit walked through the door. Her breath caught. It was him, the mystery man from the hotel room, looking completely out of place among the mismatched chairs and hand-painted menu boards. He surveyed the small cafe with the same calculating gaze she remembered, but now it felt predatory. We're closed for renovations, Aurelia said quickly, not moving from behind the counter. I'm not here for coffee. His voice was exactly as she remembered, smooth, commanding, dangerous. I'm here to speak with the owner. That would be me. Evangeline Rhodes emerged from the back office, wiping her hands on her apron. At 72, Aurelia's grandmother still moved with purpose despite the tremor in her left hand that had developed over the past few months. How can I help you? The man pulled out a business card and handed it to Evangeline. Damian Castellano. I represent Castellano Development Corporation. Aurelia's blood went cold. She'd heard that name before, plastered across construction sites throughout Manhattan, associated with luxury high-rises that displaced entire neighborhoods. The kind of developer who turned community gathering places into sterile corporate spaces. Mr. Castellano. Evangeline studied the card. What brings you to our little cafe? I'd like to make you an offer for this property. The property isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, Mrs. Rhodes. It's just a matter of price. Damian's eyes flicked to Aurelia, and she saw the exact moment he recognized her. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. I'm prepared to offer you 3 times the assessed value. Evangeline's eyebrows rose. 3 times? That's very generous, Mr. Castellano. But like I said, we're not selling. Perhaps you should consider it. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and showed it to Evangeline. I've already secured the properties on either side of you. The building to your left, the vintage bookstore to your right. This entire block is being redeveloped. Aurelia felt the walls closing in. She'd grown up in this cafe, had learned to walk between these tables, had done homework in the back booth every day after school. This wasn't just Evangeline's business, it was their family's legacy. You can't force us to sell, Aurelia said, stepping forward. Damian's gaze locked onto hers. I don't force anyone to do anything. I simply make offers that are difficult to refuse. Well, we're refusing. Aurelia. Evangeline's voice carried a warning. Let me handle this. Why this block? Aurelia ignored her grandmother's tone. There are plenty of other places to build your towers. Location, location, location. Damian slipped his phone back into his jacket. This corner will anchor a mixed-use development, retail, office space, luxury residential units. It's progress. It's gentrification. It's business. The casual dismissal in his voice made her want to throw something. What about the people who live here, work here, have built their lives here? They'll adapt. They always do. How compassionate of you. Damian stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne again. Compassion doesn't build cities, miss. He was testing her, waiting to see if she'd give him her last name. The bastard knew exactly who she was, but wanted to play games. Rhodes, Evangeline supplied. Aurelia is my granddaughter. Rhodes. Damian repeated the name slowly, the same way he'd said Aurelia in the hotel room. How interesting. Mr. Castellano, Evangeline interrupted. I appreciate your offer. I truly do. But this cafe has been in my family for 47 years. My late husband and I built it from nothing. It's not just a business, it's our home. Sentiment doesn't pay medical bills, Mrs. Rhodes. Aurelia's head snapped up. What did you say? I do my research before making offers. Your grandmother has been to Mount Sinai Hospital 6 times in the past 3 months. Cardiology department. Damian's tone remained conversational, but his words landed like blows. Treatment for atrial fibrillation can be expensive, especially without adequate insurance coverage. You investigated us? Aurelia's voice cracked with rage. I investigate all my potential business partners. We're not your business partners. Not yet. Evangeline sank into the nearest chair, suddenly looking every one of her 72 years. How did you? Hospital parking records are public information if you know where to look. Damien pulled out another business card and placed it on the table beside Evangeline. My offer stands for 72 hours. After that, I'll be forced to explore other options. What other options? Aurelia demanded. Damien's smile was sharp as a knife. The city has been very interested in some of the code violations I've noticed during my preliminary surveys of this block. Outdated electrical systems, potential health code issues. The kind of problems that could shut a business down indefinitely while they're being addressed. You're threatening us. I'm offering you a way out before problems become insurmountable. Aurelia looked at her grandmother, seeing the defeat creeping into her eyes. The doctor bills had been piling up, that much was true. The cafe barely broke even on good days, and there had been fewer good days lately. 72 hours, Evangeline said quietly. Grandma Eve, no. Aurelia, sweetheart, maybe we should consider. This is our home, and it always will be. Damien straightened his tie. I'm not unreasonable. I'm sure we can work out an arrangement where Mrs. Rhodes retains some sentimental connection to the property. The condescension in his voice made Aurelia's fists clench. Get out. I beg your pardon. You heard me. Get out of our cafe. Damien looked genuinely surprised. Miss Rhodes, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. No, I understand perfectly. You're a bully in an expensive suit who thinks money gives you the right to destroy people's lives. I'm a businessman making a legitimate offer. You're a predator. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Careful, Miss Rhodes. You might want to think before you make accusations you can't back up. Or what? You'll investigate me too. The silence stretched between them, electric with tension. Finally, Damien picked up his business card from the table. 72 hours, Mrs. Rhodes. Don't let pride cost you everything. He walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Miss Rhodes? You might want to be more careful about where you leave your jewelry. He pulled something from his pocket, her missing pearl earring, and set it on the counter before walking out. Aurelia stared at the earring, her mind reeling. He'd known who she was all along. Aurelia stared at the business card in her hand for the 10th time that morning. Castellano Development Corporation. Executive assistant position. The salary listed was more than she made in 6 months at the cafe. You're actually considering this? Maya, her roommate, peered over her shoulder while sipping coffee. The guy threatened your grandmother, and now he's offering you a job? He's offering me a way to save the cafe. Aurelia tossed the card onto their tiny kitchen table. 3 months. That's all I have to do. Work as his assistant for 3 months, and he'll reconsider the purchase. It's obviously a trap. Of course it's a trap. But what choice do I have? The card had arrived by messenger yesterday morning, along with a single-line note. Perhaps we can find a mutually beneficial arrangement. DC. No explanation, no details, just an address and a time for an interview. Aurelia's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't be late. DC. She grabbed her jacket and portfolio, ignoring Maya's protests about Stockholm Syndrome and predatory billionaires. The Castellano building dominated an entire city block in Midtown, its glass and steel facade reflecting the morning sun like armor. Aurelia had walked past it dozens of times, but never imagined she'd be going inside. The lobby was intimidating, all marble and modern art, with a security desk that looked like mission control. She gave her name to the guard, who made a call and handed her a visitor's badge. 52nd floor. Ms. Voss will meet you at the elevator. The elevator ride felt like ascending into another world. When the doors opened, a woman in her 40s stood waiting. Platinum blonde hair pulled into a severe chignon, red lips, and eyes like chips of ice. Miss Rhodes, I'm Scarlett Voss, Mr. Castellano's executive assistant. Her smile was perfectly professional and completely fake. He's waiting for you. They walked through a maze of glass offices and conference rooms. Employees in expensive suits moved with purpose, their conversations conducted in hushed tones. This wasn't just a business, it was an empire. A word of advice, Scarlett said as they approached a set of double doors at the end of the hallway. Mr. Castellano doesn't tolerate incompetence or insubordination. If you're here to waste his time, I suggest you leave now. Thanks for the pep talk. Scarlett's smile sharpened. You're welcome. She knocked once and opened the doors without waiting for a response. Damien sat behind a desk the size of a small car, talking on the phone in what sounded like rapid-fire Spanish. He held up one finger. Wait, without looking up. The office was a study in controlled power. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. Modern furniture in blacks and grays. No personal photos, no sentimental touches. Just like the man himself. Yes, I understand the concerns about the Miami project, but the permits will be approved by Friday. I guarantee it. His voice carried absolute confidence. Because I own half the city council, Eduardo. That's how I guarantee it. Aurelia tried not to react to the casual admission of corruption, but Damien's eyes flicked to her face, gauging her response. Handle it, he said into the phone and hung up. Miss Rhodes. Punctual. I like that. Let's get one thing straight, Aurelia said before he could continue. I'm not here because I want to work for you. I'm here because you're holding my family hostage. Hostage is a strong word. So is extortion. Damien leaned back in his chair, studying her. Scarlett, give us the room. Sir, you're 10:30. Can wait. Scarlett hesitated, then nodded curtly and left, closing the doors behind her with more force than necessary. She doesn't like me, Aurelia observed. Scarlett doesn't like anyone who might threaten her position. Damien stood and walked to the windows. She's been with me for 8 years. Very loyal, very efficient, and very protective of her territory. Am I threatening her territory? That depends on how well you perform. The words carried an undertone that made her pulse quicken. What exactly would I be performing? He turned to face her. Research, analysis, coordination of meetings and travel arrangements. Standard assistant duties. And in return, I postponed the cafe acquisition for 3 months. Give you time to find alternative financing or figure out another solution. What's the catch? No catch, just conditions. Such as, you'll work exclusively for me. No outside projects, no freelance design work, no shifts at the cafe. I need to help my grandmother. Your grandmother needs you to focus on solving her problems, not enabling them. His tone brooked no argument. She'll receive a monthly stipend to cover operating expenses and medical bills during your employment period. Aurelia blinked. You'd pay her bills? I'd invest in her health, yes. Consider it an advance against the eventual sale price. You're so sure she'll sell. People always sell, Miss Rhodes. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point. And what's my pressure point? He moved closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. Your love for your family. Your determination to save something you care about. Your belief that you can somehow outsmart me. Can I? You can try. The challenge in his voice sent heat through her veins. This was dangerous territory, playing games with a man who held all the cards. But what choice did she have? When do I start? Now. He returned to his desk and pressed a button on his phone. Scarlett, please show Miss Rhodes to her office and get her set up with system access. She'll be handling the Patterson merger files. The Patterson merger? Scarlett's voice crackled through the speaker. But I've been managing. You'll be transitioning your responsibilities. Miss Rhodes will be taking over several of your accounts. Silence. Then, of course, sir. Aurelia felt a chill. She was about to make an enemy of someone who clearly had significant influence with Damien. One more thing, Damien said as she headed for the door. We'll be working closely together over the next 3 months. Very closely. I hope that won't be a problem. Why would it be a problem? His smile was predatory. Because the last time we were alone in a room together, you ran away. Heat flooded her cheeks. I didn't run away. I left. You ran. I had a job to do. And now you have a different job to do. He picked up his phone again, dismissing her. Try not to run from this one. Aurelia walked out with her head high, but she could feel his eyes on her back. 3 months. She could survive 3 months of whatever game he was playing. She just hoped she wouldn't lose herself in the process. 2 weeks into her employment at Castellano Development, Aurelia had learned 3 things about her boss. He worked 18-hour days, he trusted no one completely, and he had nightmares. The last discovery came by accident. She'd returned to the office late one evening to retrieve files she'd forgotten, only to find Damien asleep at his desk, papers scattered around him like fallen leaves. He'd been muttering in his sleep, words she couldn't quite make out, but the distress in his voice was unmistakable. She'd left quietly, but the image haunted her. What demons chased a man who seemed to have everything? Miss Rhodes, the Morrison files you requested. Scarlett's voice cut through her thoughts as she dropped a stack of folders on Aurelia's desk with unnecessary force. Thank you. Aurelia didn't look up from her computer screen. She'd learned that engaging with Scarlett only led to subtle insults wrapped in professional courtesy. Mr. Castellano wants to see you in his office. Immediately, Aurelia saved her work and headed to the executive floor. She'd made this walk dozens of times now, but it still felt like entering a different atmosphere. The air itself seemed thinner up here, charged with power and ambition. She knocked and entered to find Damien standing by his windows, staring out at the city below. He didn't turn when she entered. Close the door. She did, noting the tension in his shoulders. Something was wrong. There's been a development with the Morrison project. He finally faced her, and she was struck by how tired he looked. The usual sharp edge to his appearance was dulled, his tie loosened, his hair slightly disheveled. Anderson Morrison is backing out of the deal. Can he do that? He can try. Damien's smile was cold. Apparently, someone's been asking questions about my business practices. Morrison got spooked. What kind of questions? The kind that suggests someone is investigating my company. He moved to his desk and pulled out a business card. This was left at Morrison's office yesterday. Aurelia took the card. Lysander Thorne, investigative journalist, New York Tribune. A reporter? Not just any reporter. Thorne specializes in corporate corruption and white-collar crime. He's brought down 3 Fortune 500 CEOs in the past 5 years. What would he want with your company? Damien's laugh was bitter. Any number of things. Construction companies make easy targets, building permits, city contracts, union negotiations. Plenty of opportunities for ethical gray areas. Gray areas? Don't be naive, Aurelia. No one builds an empire in this city with clean hands. The casual admission sent a chill through her. What are you saying? I'm saying that Lysander Thorne has made a career out of destroying men like me. And someone pointed him in my direction. Do you know who? I have suspicions. His eyes met hers. Tell me something, Aurelia. Why did you really take this job? The question caught her off guard. You know why? To save my grandmother's cafe. That's what you told me. But people lie. They have hidden agendas, ulterior motives. He circled his desk slowly, like a predator stalking prey. How do I know you're not feeding information to this reporter? Are you serious? Anger flared in her chest. You think I'm some kind of corporate spy? I think you're a smart woman who grew up poor and suddenly found herself with access to millions of dollars worth of sensitive information. I would never. Never is a strong word. He stopped directly in front of her. Everyone has a price, Aurelia. Everyone can be bought or coerced or threatened into betrayal. Not everyone. No? What if Thorne offered to expose some corrupt practice that would force me to abandon the cafe acquisition? Wouldn't that be tempting? She stared at him, seeing the paranoia that lived beneath his polished exterior. Is that what you think of me? That I'm just another person trying to use you? I think you're human. And humans are fundamentally selfish creatures who will do whatever it takes to protect what they love. You're wrong. Am I? He reached out and touched her cheek, the gesture surprisingly gentle. Your grandmother means everything to you. If someone threatened her, truly threatened her, what wouldn't you do to save her? The touch sent electricity through her skin, but she forced herself to step back. I'm not betraying you to some reporter, Damien. I don't know anything about your business practices, and I don't want to know. Willful ignorance. Self-preservation. He studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to read her thoughts. There's something else you should know about Lysander Thorne. He's not just investigating my business practices. He's been asking questions about my personal life. My family. Your family. Damien turned away, but not before she saw something vulnerable flicker across his features. My parents died when I was 16. Car accident. Or so I was told. I'm sorry. Don't be. I barely remember them. The words were delivered with forced casualness. But apparently, Thorne has been requesting police reports, insurance records, autopsy files. Why would a business reporter care about a 16-year-old car accident? That's what I intend to find out. He moved to his safe, entering a complex code and retrieving a file. I need you to research Lysander Thorne. Everything. His background, his sources, his methods. I want to know what he knows before he knows I know it. Aurelia took the file. Damien, maybe there's nothing to find. Maybe he's just being thorough. There's always something to find, Aurelia. The question is whether it's something that can destroy you. She opened the file and found photographs. Crime scene photos of a mangled car, police reports with official stamps, newspaper clippings with headlines about a tragic accident. But there was something else, something that made her breath catch. These reports, she said slowly, they don't match. What do you mean? The police report says the accident happened at 11:47 p.m. But the hospital admission records show your parents arriving at 10:23 p.m. That's over an hour difference. Damien went very still. What? And look at this. She pointed to another document. The insurance claim was filed 3 days before the accident date. That's impossible. Unless someone knew the accident was going to happen. The silence that followed was deafening. Damien sank into his chair, his face pale. My parents didn't die in an accident, he said quietly. They were murdered. You don't know that for certain. Yes, I do. He looked up at her, and she saw something she'd never seen before in his eyes, fear. And if Lysander Thorne is investigating their deaths, it means someone wants the truth to come out. The question is why, and what they plan to do with it when they find it. Aurelia closed the file, her hands trembling slightly. She'd wanted to save her grandmother's cafe, but she was beginning to realize she'd walked into something much more dangerous than a simple business arrangement. She was now part of a game where the stakes weren't just money or property, they were life and death. Aurelia met Lysander Thorne at a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan's corporate towers and watchful eyes. She'd been researching him for 3 days, and what she'd found made her stomach turn. He wasn't just investigating Damien's business practices. He was building a case for murder. Miss Rhodes. Thorne looked exactly like she'd imagined. Mid-40s, slightly rumpled, with the intense gaze of someone who spent his life digging up buried secrets. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I haven't agreed to anything. She kept her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I'm just here to listen. Fair enough. He slid a manila envelope across the table. But I think you'll want to hear what I've discovered about your boss. Aurelia stared at the envelope without touching it. How did you even find me? I make it my business to know who's close to the people I investigate. Damien Castellano doesn't trust easily, but he's trusted you with access to sensitive files. Thorne leaned forward. The question is whether you're willing to use that access to help expose the truth. What truth? That Marcus and Helena Castellano didn't die in a car accident. They were murdered by orders of the Moretti crime family because Marcus owed them $3 million in gambling debts. The words hit her like physical blows. That's impossible. Is it? Thorne opened the envelope and pulled out photographs. Bank records, casino receipts, phone logs. Marcus Castellano had a serious gambling problem. He'd been borrowing money from loan sharks for months before his death. When he couldn't pay, they made an example of him. Aurelia forced herself to look at the documents. The evidence was damning. Marcus Castellano had indeed been in deep debt to dangerous people. But how does this involve Damien? He was just a kid. Because someone in the Castellano household was feeding information to the Morettis. Someone who knew Marcus's schedule, his routes, his habits. Thorne pulled out another photograph. Someone who had access to the house and could report on the family's movements. The photo showed a young woman with platinum blonde hair and cold eyes. Even 20 years younger, Scarlett Voss was unmistakable. Scarlett was working for them. Scarlett was Marcus's secretary before she became Damien's assistant. She was also Vincent Moretti's lover. Thorne's voice was matter-of-fact, but the implications were staggering. She fed them information about Marcus's schedule the night of the murder. In exchange, they spared her life and set her up with a new identity. This is insane. It gets worse. After Marcus died, Scarlett seduced his brother Robert, Damien's uncle, and married him 6 months later. She gained access to the Castellano family fortune and has been slowly siphoning money to offshore accounts ever since. Aurelia felt sick. Damien doesn't know? Damien thinks his parents died in an accident. He has no idea that the woman he trusts most in the world orchestrated their murder. Why are you telling me this? Why not go directly to the police? Because I need proof. Hard evidence. And that evidence is locked away in Castellano Development's private files. Thorne leaned closer. Files that you have access to. You want me to steal from him. I want you to help me expose a murderer who's been living off blood money for 20 years. Aurelia pushed the photographs back across the table. I can't do this. Can't or won't. Both. She stood to leave, but Thorne's next words stopped her cold. Vincent Moretti is dead, Miss Rhodes. Killed in prison 3 years ago. But before he died, he gave a detailed confession to the FBI about the Castellano murders. Everything I've told you is documented in federal files. Then why do you need me? Because Scarlett Voss has been very careful to cover her tracks. The offshore accounts, the money transfers, the evidence of her ongoing criminal enterprise. It's all hidden in Castellano development systems. Without that proof, she walks away free. Aurelia sank back into her chair. What happens to Damien when this comes out? That depends on how much he knows. If he's innocent, he'll be devastated but free. If he's been helping Scarlett launder money, he's not a criminal. How can you be sure? Because I've seen who he really is. The words came out before she could stop them. Underneath all the arrogance and cruelty, he's just someone who's been hurt and doesn't trust anyone. And yet he trusts Scarlett. Because she's the only family he has left. Thorne studied her face. You care about him. That's not relevant. It's the only thing that's relevant. If you care about Damien Castellano, you'll help me expose the truth before Scarlett destroys him completely. What do you mean? She's been positioning herself to take over his company. Small moves, subtle manipulations, but the pattern is clear. When Damien becomes a liability, she'll eliminate him just like she eliminated his parents. The thought sent ice through Aurelia's veins. You're saying she'd kill him? I'm saying she's already tried once. Thorne pulled out a final document, a hospital record from 6 months ago. Damien was hospitalized for what doctors called a severe allergic reaction, but the toxicology report shows traces of oleander poison. Oleander, a plant that causes symptoms similar to a heart attack. In small doses, it mimics an allergic reaction. In larger doses, it's fatal. Aurelia stared at the medical records, her mind racing. She's been slowly poisoning him, testing dosages, perfecting her method. When she's ready to make her move, it'll look like natural causes. Why hasn't she done it already? Because she needs him alive long enough to transfer key assets to her control. But once that's done, Thorne left the sentence hanging. Aurelia felt trapped between impossible choices. Help Thorne expose Scarlett and betray Damien's trust, or stay silent and watch him die slowly. What exactly are you asking me to do? Give me access to Scarlett's computer files, financial records, email communications, anything that can prove her connection to the Moretti family. And if I get caught, then you'd better hope Damien believes you were trying to save his life. Aurelia looked at the photographs scattered across the table, evidence of decades of lies, manipulation, and murder. She thought about Damien's nightmares, his paranoia, his inability to trust. He'd been living with the woman who killed his parents for 20 years, never knowing the truth. When? She asked quietly. Tomorrow night. There's a charity gala at the Meridian Hotel. Everyone from the company will be there, including Scarlett. The building will be nearly empty. The Meridian Hotel, where this had all started, in a case of mistaken identity that now seemed like fate. If I do this, Aurelia said, I want one guarantee. What's that? When you publish your story, you make it clear that Damien is a victim, not a perpetrator. If the evidence supports that conclusion, yes, it will. She stood again, this time with purpose. Because I know him better than you think. As she walked away, Aurelia wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But one thing was certain. She couldn't let Scarlett Voss kill the man she was falling in love with, even if exposing the truth destroyed any chance they had together. The charity gala at the Meridian Hotel was in full swing when Aurelia slipped away from the crowd. She'd spent 2 hours making small talk with Manhattan's elite, watching Damien work the room with effortless charm while Scarlett hovered nearby like a protective shadow. Every smile Scarlett flashed, every gentle touch she placed on Damien's arm, made Aurelia's stomach churn with the knowledge of what the woman had done. The elevator ride to the 52nd floor felt like an eternity. Her hands shook as she used her security card to access the executive offices. The building was eerily quiet after hours, emergency lighting casting long shadows down empty corridors. Scarlett's office was adjacent to Damien's, separated by a glass partition that normally offered no privacy. But tonight, with the lights dimmed and most of the building empty, Aurelia felt exposed as she sat at Scarlett's computer and began her search. The first few directories contained standard business files, meeting notes, travel arrangements, vendor contracts. But as she dug deeper, following Lysander's instructions, she found hidden folders protected by additional passwords. It took her 20 minutes and 3 failed attempts before she cracked Scarlett's security questions. The answers were chilling in their banality. Her mother's maiden name was Moretti. The files she uncovered painted a picture of systematic theft spanning 2 decades. Wire transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands, forged documents authorizing expenditures that never reached their intended destinations, insurance policies taken out on key Castellano development executives with Scarlett as the beneficiary. But it was the email correspondence that made Aurelia's blood run cold. Messages between Scarlett and someone identified only as VM dating back years. The early emails were businesslike, discussing payment schedules and project timelines. But as Aurelia read further, the true nature of their relationship became clear. The boy suspects nothing. He still trusts me completely. SV. Good. Maintain that trust until we're ready to execute the final phase. 20 years of planning must not be wasted. VM. He's been asking questions about his parents again. I may need to accelerate the timeline. SV. Handle it carefully. We cannot afford another investigation like the one that destroyed our Miami operation. VM. Aurelia's breath caught as she opened the most recent email thread, dated just 3 days ago. The Rhodes girl is becoming a problem. She's too close to him, making him question things he should accept without thought. SV. Eliminate the problem. VM. I've already begun. A gradual approach works best. Car accidents are so common in the city. SV. Aurelia's hands froze over the keyboard. They were planning to kill her too. She quickly copied the files to a portable drive, her movements becoming more frantic as the reality of her situation sank in. She wasn't just exposing a conspiracy, she was signing her own death warrant. Working late, Aurelia spun around, her heart nearly stopping. Damien stood in the doorway, his tuxedo jacket draped over one arm, his shirt sleeves rolled up. But his expression wasn't one of curiosity. It was cold, calculating, dangerous. I was just, she began, but he cut her off with a raised hand. Checking Scarlett's email, going through her personal files. He stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Damien, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why the woman I trusted with access to my most sensitive business information has been secretly meeting with investigative journalists? He pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph, her sitting across from Lysander Thorne at the coffee shop in Brooklyn. Can you explain why you're sitting at my assistant's computer, stealing confidential files? Because your assistant murdered your parents. The words exploded out of her before she could stop them. Damien went very still. What did you say? Scarlett worked with the Moretti crime family to kill your parents. She's been stealing from you for 20 years, and now she's planning to kill you too. Aurelia held up the portable drive. It's all here. The emails, the financial records, everything. You're lying. I'm trying to save your life. Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. Save my life? You're destroying it. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've exposed a murderer. You've betrayed me. His voice was quiet, but the pain in it cut deeper than shouting would have. I trusted you. I let you into my life, my business, my world. And you repaid that trust by conspiring with my enemies. I'm not your enemy, Damien. I'm trying to protect you. From what? From the woman who raised me after my parents died? From the only person who's been loyal to me for 20 years? He moved closer, and she could see the hurt behind the anger in his eyes. Scarlett saved my life when I was 16 and had nowhere to go. She helped me build this company from nothing. She's the closest thing to family I have. She's a killer. She's my family. He reached for the portable drive, but Aurelia pulled it back. Look at the files, Damien. Just look at them before you make up your mind. I don't need to look at fabricated evidence created by a journalist who makes his living destroying successful people. The evidence isn't fabricated. The FBI has Vincent Moretti's confession. Vincent Moretti has been dead for 3 years. Because he confessed before he died. He told them everything about your parents' murder. My parents died in a car accident. No, they didn't. Aurelia opened one of the email files on the computer screen. Read it. Read what she wrote about you. Damien glanced at the screen, and for a moment, she saw doubt flicker in his expression. But then his face hardened again. Email addresses can be spoofed. Documents can be forged. You've been played, Aurelia. Thorne used your feelings for me to turn you into his weapon. My feelings for you. The admission hung between them like a live wire. Did you think I couldn't see it? The way you look at me, the way you respond when I'm near you. His voice dropped to a whisper. Did you think I didn't feel it too? The confession shattered something inside her. Then why won't you listen to me? Because love makes people do stupid things. Desperate things. Like believing conspiracy theories because the alternative is too painful to accept. What alternative? That you never meant anything to me except as a convenient way to acquire your grandmother's property. The words hit her like physical blows. You're lying. Am I? You were never supposed to work here for 3 months, Aurelia. The job was always temporary. A way to keep you distracted while I moved forward with the acquisition. That's not true. Your grandmother received an eviction notice this morning. The building's been condemned due to health code violations. She has 30 days to vacate. Aurelia felt the world tilting beneath her feet. You promised. I promised to reconsider the acquisition. I did. I decided to proceed. But the money you've been giving her for medical bills will stop immediately, effective tonight. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Security? I need you to escort Miss Rhodes from the building. She's terminated, effective immediately. Damien, please. And I need you to revoke her security access and add her to the restricted list. She's not to be allowed back in the building under any circumstances. Aurelia stared at him, seeing a stranger where once she'd seen glimpses of the man beneath the armor. You're really going to do this? You're going to let her kill you because you can't admit you were wrong. The only person who tried to kill me was you. You tried to kill my trust, my relationships, my peace of mind. Congratulations, Aurelia. You succeeded. Security arrived. 2 large men in dark suits who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. One of them cleared his throat apologetically. Miss Rhodes, we need you to come with us. Aurelia looked at Damien one last time, searching for any sign of the man who'd touched her face so gently, who'd revealed his vulnerabilities to her in moments of unguarded honesty. But that man was gone, locked away behind walls too high to scale. You'll realize the truth eventually, she said quietly. When you do, remember that I tried to save you. The only thing I'll remember is that you tried to destroy me. As security escorted her from the building, Aurelia clutched the portable drive containing evidence that could save Damien's life. But she knew now that he'd never look at it, never believe it, never trust her again. She'd tried to save the man she loved, and instead, she'd lost him forever. Outside the Meridian Hotel, she could see the lights of the charity gala still blazing in the ballroom windows. Damien would return to the party, to Scarlett's side, to the slow poison that would eventually kill him. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Car trouble can be so dangerous in the city. Drive safely, Miss Rhodes. The threat was clear. Scarlett knew what she'd done, and the countdown to her own elimination had begun. Aurelia looked up at the glittering towers of Manhattan, each window representing lives, dreams, stories of love and loss and betrayal. Somewhere in those towers, Damien was returning to his gilded cage, protected by the very person who would destroy him. She'd gambled everything on love and lost. Now she had to decide whether to run for her life or find another way to save his. Either way, her heart lay in pieces on the cold city streets, and she wasn't sure it would ever be whole again. The heart monitor's steady beeping was the only sound in Mount Sinai's intensive care unit as Aurelia sat beside her grandmother's bed, holding Evangeline's frail hand. 3 days had passed since the confrontation at Castellano Development. 3 days of watching the woman who'd raised her slip further away with each labored breath. The doctors say her heart is failing faster than they expected, Maya whispered from the other side of the bed. The stress of the eviction, losing the cafe, it's too much for her. Aurelia nodded but didn't speak. She couldn't tell Maya about the real reason for Evangeline's rapid decline, the sudden withdrawal of medical funding that had been paying for her experimental treatments. Damien had kept his word about cutting off support, and the standard hospital care wasn't enough to keep her grandmother stable. Aurelia, sweetheart? Evangeline's voice was barely audible, but her eyes were clearer than they'd been in days. I'm here, Grandma Eve. There's something I need to tell you. Something about that young man. Castellano. Aurelia felt her chest tighten. You don't need to worry about that now. Yes, I do. Evangeline struggled to sit up slightly, her breathing labored. I knew his father. Marcus Castellano. What? Aurelia leaned closer, certain she'd misheard. Before Marcus became wealthy, before he married that society woman Helena, he used to come to the cafe. This was, 30 years ago now. He was just a construction worker then, but he had big dreams. Aurelia's mind raced. You never mentioned this. I didn't want to complicate things for you, dear. But Marcus was. He was a good man who made terrible choices. Evangeline reached for the small handbag beside her bed with trembling fingers. Help me get that letter, the one in the side pocket. Aurelia found the envelope, yellowed with age, addressed to Evangeline in careful handwriting. What is this? Marcus brought it to me the week before he died. He was terrified, said some very dangerous people were threatening his family. He begged me to keep this safe, said if anything happened to him, I should make sure Damien eventually saw it. Aurelia's hands shook as she opened the envelope. The letter was dated 3 days before Marcus and Helena Castellano's deaths. Eve, she read aloud. If you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. The debts I accumulated trying to save my business have put my family in mortal danger. Vincent Moretti and his associates have made it clear that failure to pay will result in consequences I cannot bear to imagine. But it's not just the money anymore. Someone close to me, someone I trusted, has been feeding information to Moretti about my family's routines, our security measures, even our travel plans. I suspect it's Scarlett, my secretary. She's been acting strangely, asking questions about Helena's schedule, about Damien's school activities. I'm scared, Eve. Not for myself, but for my wife and son. If something happens to us, please make sure Damien knows the truth about who we really were, not the criminals Moretti will paint us as. We loved him more than life itself. Marcus. Aurelia stared at the letter, her heart pounding. This was proof, written proof that Marcus suspected Scarlett before his death. Combined with the files she'd stolen, it would be enough to convince even the FBI. Why didn't you give this to Damien when he came to the cafe? Evangeline's smile was sad. Because the young man who walked into my cafe wasn't ready to hear it. He was so angry, so hurt, so determined to see the world as his enemy. I hoped that maybe knowing you would soften him first. He doesn't trust me anymore, Grandma Eve. He thinks I betrayed him. Love has a way of surviving even the deepest wounds, sweetheart. But first, he needs to know the truth about the woman who's been poisoning his life. Before Aurelia could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent text from Lysander. Meet me at Brooklyn Heights Promenade. Now, Scarlett knows about the stolen files. You're in immediate danger. I have to go, Aurelia said, kissing her grandmother's forehead. But I'll be back soon. Take the letter to him, Aurelia. Whatever's happened between you, he deserves to know who his father really was. The Brooklyn Heights Promenade was nearly deserted in the late afternoon, offering a panoramic view of Manhattan's skyline. Aurelia found Lysander at their usual meeting spot, but his expression was grimmer than she'd ever seen it. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Scarlett Voss isn't just connected to the Moretti family. She's Vincent Moretti's daughter. What? I've been digging deeper into her background since our last meeting. Scarlett Moretti became Scarlett Voss when she entered witness protection 25 years ago, but she never actually testified against her father's organization. Instead, she used her protected status to infiltrate the Castellano family on his orders. Aurelia felt sick. So this has been planned from the beginning? Not just planned, orchestrated across decades. Vincent Moretti's confession to the FBI wasn't about clearing his conscience. It was about positioning his daughter to inherit everything Marcus Castellano built. But Vincent is dead. Vincent is dead, but his empire isn't. His son, Anthony Moretti, has been running operations from Italy for the past 5 years. And according to financial records I obtained through unofficial channels, Anthony has been funneling money into shell companies controlled by Scarlett. Lysander pulled out a tablet and showed her bank transfer records. Look at these amounts. $50 million moved through 12 different accounts over the past 6 months. Scarlett isn't just stealing from Damien. She's systematically liquidating his entire company. Soon. My source in the FBI says there's chatter about a major consolidation event. Something that will eliminate all loose ends and transfer full control of Castellano development to offshore entities. Loose ends like Damien. And like you, Scarlett knows you accessed her files. She knows about our meetings. She's already begun moving against both of you. Aurelia's phone rang. The caller ID showed Damien's name, and for a moment, hope flared in her chest. But when she answered, Scarlett's voice came through the speaker. "Miss Rhodes, how lovely to hear from you again. Where's Damien? Mr. Castellano is indisposed at the moment. A sudden illness, I'm afraid. Something he ate at lunch disagreed with him terribly." Scarlett's tone was mockingly sympathetic. "In fact, the doctors aren't sure he'll recover. Food poisoning can be so unpredictable." Aurelia met Lysander's eyes, seeing her own fear reflected there. "What do you want?" "I want you to return what you stole from me. The files, the portable drive, any copies you may have made. In exchange, I'll ensure that Mr. Castellano receives the medical attention he needs." "How do I know you'll keep your word?" "You don't. But consider the alternative. Without proper treatment, oleander poisoning is fatal within 12 to 18 hours. You have approximately 6 hours to make your decision." The line went dead. Aurelia stared at her phone, paralyzed by the impossible choice. Give Scarlett the evidence and lose any chance of exposing her crimes, or refuse and watch Damien die. "There's another option," Lysander said quietly. "We take the evidence to the FBI now. Force them to act before Scarlett can disappear. By the time they get a warrant and raid the hospital, Damien will be dead. Maybe. But if we give Scarlett those files, she'll kill him anyway. And then she'll kill you." Aurelia looked across the water at Manhattan's glittering towers, thinking about Damien lying unconscious in some hospital bed, slowly dying while the woman he trusted most in the world watched. She thought about her grandmother's letter, about Marcus Castellano's desperate attempt to protect his family, about 20 years of lies and manipulation that had shaped Damien into a man who couldn't trust anyone. "I'm going to save him," she said finally. "How?" Aurelia pulled out her phone and began typing. "By doing what Scarlett doesn't expect. I'm going to tell him the truth. He won't believe you. You said so yourself. He will when he sees his father's letter." She finished typing and hit send, hoping the message would reach its intended recipient. And when he realizes that the woman he considers family has been slowly killing him for months. Her phone buzzed with a response to her message. "Package received. Give me 1 hour." "LT, what did you do?" Lysander asked. "I sent copies of everything to every major news outlet in the city, along with your contact information. In 1 hour. This story breaks whether we're alive to see it or not." "That's either brilliant or insane. Probably both." Aurelia stood, determination replacing fear. "But Damien deserves to know the truth, even if he dies knowing it. And Scarlett Voss deserves to face justice for what she's done." "Where are you going?" "To the hospital. If Damien's going to die, he's not going to die alone. And if there's any chance to save him, I'm going to take it." As she walked away, Aurelia thought about love and trust, about the courage it took to believe in someone even when they'd given up on themselves. Damien had spent 20 years believing in a lie, trusting someone who destroyed everything he'd ever loved. Maybe it was time for him to learn what it felt like to be trusted in return, even when trust seemed impossible, even when it might cost her everything. Aurelia found Damien at New York Presbyterian Hospital, unconscious in a private room on the cardiac wing. Scarlett sat beside his bed like a devoted guardian, but when she saw Aurelia enter, her mask of concern slipped into something predatory. "Miss Rhodes, I wasn't expecting you to be so direct in your approach. Let me guess, you told the staff I'm an unstable ex-employee who's been stalking him." "Something like that." Scarlett stood gracefully, her hand resting possessively on Damien's shoulder. "Security will be here shortly to escort you out. Before they arrive, you might want to check the news." Aurelia held up her phone, showing the breaking news alert that had just appeared. "FBI raids Castellano Development. Executive assistant arrested in connection with 20LD murders." Scarlett's composure cracked for the first time. "Impossible. I have the only copies of those files." "You had the only copies. But investigative journalists are resourceful people, and they have excellent contacts in law enforcement." Aurelia moved to Damien's other side, noting his pale complexion and labored breathing. "The FBI has Vincent Moretti's confession, your email correspondence with Anthony Moretti, and something you didn't know existed. A letter from Marcus Castellano written 3 days before his death." "What letter?" "The one where he identified you as the person feeding information to his killers." Aurelia pulled out the yellowed envelope. Amazing how evidence has a way of surviving when people care enough to preserve it. Scarlett's eyes darted to the door, calculating escape routes. Even if that's true, it changes nothing. Damien will be dead within the hour, and you'll be blamed for his death. A jealous woman who broke into the hospital to confront her former lover. Except Damien isn't dying. Dr. Elizabeth Chin entered the room, flanked by 2 nurses. Thanks to Miss Rhodes' quick thinking, we were able to identify the oleander poisoning and administer the appropriate treatment. Aurelia felt relief flood through her. He's going to be okay? His condition is stable. The activated charcoal helped absorb most of the toxin, and we've started him on supportive therapy. He should regain consciousness within the next few hours. Scarlett backed toward the window, her face a mask of rage. You've destroyed everything. 20 years of careful planning, of sacrifice. 20 years of murder and theft, Dr. Chin corrected. Security is outside, along with several FBI agents who would very much like to speak with you. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Aurelia moved between Scarlett and Damien's bed. It's been over since the moment you decided to destroy an innocent family for money. Scarlett lunged toward Damien, something silver glinting in her hand, a scalpel she'd grabbed from the medical tray. But Aurelia was faster, catching Scarlett's wrist and twisting until the weapon clattered to the floor. FBI. Nobody moved. Special Agent Martinez burst through the door with 3 other agents, weapons drawn. Scarlett raised her hand slowly, her expression cycling between fury and defeat. Scarlett Moretti, also known as Scarlett Voss, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, money laundering, and about 15 other federal charges. Agent Martinez began reading her rights as another agent cuffed her. As they led Scarlett away, she looked back at Aurelia one last time. He'll never forgive you for this. Damien doesn't know how to trust. It's not in his nature. You've saved his life, but you've lost his heart forever. Aurelia watched them go, then sank into the chair beside Damien's bed. Scarlett's words echoed in her mind. Maybe she was right. Maybe Damien would never be able to see past her deception to understand her motivations. Miss Rhodes, Dr. Chin approached quietly. There are some reporters outside who'd like to speak with you about the case. Later. I want to be here when he wakes up. She didn't have to wait long. As the afternoon sun slanted through the hospital windows, Damien's eyes fluttered open. He looked confused at first, taking in the medical equipment and hospital setting. Aurelia, his voice was hoarse but clear. What happened? You were poisoned. Oleander, administered gradually over several months, and then in a massive dose this afternoon. She handed him a cup of water. Scarlett's been arrested. Damien struggled to sit up, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, devastating understanding. The files you stole, they were real? Every single document. Your father's letter confirms that he suspected Scarlett before his death. She's been working for the Moretti family for 25 years. My parents. His voice broke. They were murdered because of her. I'm so sorry, Damien. He stared at the letter for a long time, reading and rereading his father's words. When he finally looked up, tears tracked down his cheeks. I called you a liar. I destroyed your grandmother's cafe. I fired you, humiliated you, accused you of betraying me. He reached for her hand tentatively. How can you even stand to be in the same room with me? Because I love you. The words came out simply, without hesitation. And because everyone deserves a chance to learn the truth, no matter how painful it is. I don't deserve your forgiveness. That's not your decision to make. Aurelia squeezed his hand. The question is whether you can forgive yourself. Over the next few weeks, as Damien recovered physically and emotionally from 20 years of manipulation, the full scope of Scarlett's crimes became clear. She'd stolen over $200 million from Castellano Development, manipulated city contracts to benefit Moretti family interests, and orchestrated the deaths of anyone who threatened to expose the truth. The media called it the scandal of the decade. But for Aurelia, the most important victory was watching Damien slowly learn to trust again, not just her, but himself and his own judgment. I have something to show you, he said one morning, 3 months after Scarlett's arrest. They were standing in front of what used to be Grandma Eve's cafe, now transformed into something beautiful and unexpected. Evangeline Rhodes Community Center. Aurelia read from the brass plaque beside the entrance. Damien, what is this? Your grandmother's cafe, expanded into the spaces on either side. There's still a coffee shop, but also art studios, computer classes for seniors, after-school programs for kids. He opened the door, revealing a warm, welcoming space that honored the cafe's history while serving the community's future. I thought maybe you'd like to run the art programs. Aurelia walked through the space, seeing her grandmother's spirit in every carefully preserved detail. The original counter, the hand-painted menu boards, even the mismatched chairs that had welcomed 3 generations of customers. There's something else, Damien said, leading her to a small office in the back. I've transferred ownership of the entire building to a community trust. It can never be sold or demolished. It will always belong to the neighborhood. How did you manage that? Turns out I'm pretty good at negotiating when I'm not being slowly poisoned by my assistant. His smile was tentative but genuine. I also helped the FBI recover most of the stolen money. There's enough to fund this place for decades.